We're lucky on Merseyside anyhow, having a colony of red squirrels out at Formby. We're lucky because those native red squirrels are rare. And they're rare because of the grey squirrels, who were introduced from North America to this country in the late 19th century. But are we being unfair to the greys? I've been discussing this with ecologist at Edinburgh Napier University, Dr. Jason Gilchrist.
They are pretty little things, and I suppose my perspective on it is that they're somewhat innocent victims in the battle that humans are raging to save the red squirrel.
Why should we need to save the red squirrel? Isn't a squirrel a squirrel, whatever colour?
Well, red squirrels and grey squirrels are different species, and the logic in the conservation, which I'm completely behind, of the red squirrel is that it is our native species. So it's the species that has evolved within the United Kingdom, whereas the grey squirrel was imported from America in the late 1800s, early 1900s by the Victorians. And so humans basically brought the American grey squirrel over to the UK.
What's so bad about having the grey squirrels here in those numbers?
Yeah, so there's two main thrusts to the arguments for control. If we start with the red squirrel, which is probably the most emotive argument, the problem with the grey squirrel is that it has replaced the native red squirrel across most of its UK range. So there's some isolated pockets in northern England where you are, and there's quite healthy populations in the north of Scotland and some in the south of Scotland in terms of red squirrels.
Why, because there are greys around, do reds disappear?
That's a question which has garnered a lot of interest and a lot of research over the years, and to be honest, it's not a very clear and obvious answer to the question. It appears to be there's no direct interference or aggression from grey squirrels to red squirrels, but they are a little bit larger. There's quite a lot of overlap in terms of the diet and habitat requirements to a certain extent, and probably the biggest impact, which is very relevant to Formby, is the fact that the grey squirrels harbour a disease called Squirrelpox, and Squirrelpox has a very devastating effect on red squirrel populations, but the grey squirrel, because it evolved in America with Squirrelpox, has evolved resistance. So grey squirrels are unaffected, but they carry and pass on to red squirrels.
So in the end, we could lose all the red squirrels because of that.
Yeah, so there are ecologists that are estimating that if we don't work to actively conserve the red squirrel, that it could be extinct in the UK within the next 30 to 35 years.
So why not cull them in some way?
Cull the grey squirrels?
Sorry, yes, not the reds, the greys.
Culling the grey squirrels is what's happening, and it's happening certainly with some success in terms of helping the reds in local areas where it's being used. So Formby, I think, is one of the good examples in terms of where controlling, well, when I say control, we should be honest about what control means. Controlling is killing the grey squirrels, where that has assisted the red squirrel population to maintain itself within that area. So culling has been shown to be effective.
But you also could try and use contraceptives.
The point that I've been making recently is the wildlife trusts are using an approach which has been shown to be effective in conserving reds and reducing grey squirrel populations. My call to arms, if you like, is that if we look at that strategy and we just accept that that's the best strategy going forward, it means that essentially we're committing ourselves in the UK to spending millions of pounds every year and killing tens of thousands of grey squirrels year after year after year, forever and ever. And what I'm saying is what the wildlife trusts and society need to do is to continue to investigate and encourage alternative methods of managing or minimising the populations of greys, which, to my mind, ideally will reduce the effort that we need to put into humans killing them.
So how does the contraceptive idea work?
Yeah, so this is an idea that's been around for 20 to 30 years, and so the idea there is that we have an oral contraceptive that is put in a bait using some form of hazelnut or chocolate spread, which squirrels apparently find quite attractive. And the logic there is that the squirrels by consuming that bait, that will then prevent them reproducing, and in that way the population will reduce naturally over time, and it won't involve us having to capture and kill the squirrels. There are one or two other possible routes to help favour the red squirrel going forward. One is the pine marten, which is a native predator which was persecuted in the UK historically, but it's making a comeback and it's being reintroduced to some areas. And it's been shown that there's an apparent preference by the pine marten for predating grey squirrels over red squirrels. So it provides some hope, and some data which came specifically from Formby, which is the resistance to Squirrelpox, also gives us some hope that the red squirrels may be becoming more robust, and therefore that they may be able to help themselves going forward.
But I said, when my children were young, they loved the red squirrels at home, but they also like greys. We've got a lot of greys where we live, and they like them both. So I think they'd like not to kill off or attempt to kill off all the greys.
Indeed, yeah. So it's an interesting point about the grey squirrel. So I look at the grey squirrel, and it's not that, as you said at the beginning, it's not that different from the red squirrel. It does a similar job, it behaves similarly, it looks similar, but ultimately it's a different species. But the grey squirrel sort of polarises opinion, and that there are those who think that it's cute and cuddly and lovely and wonderful to see, and it brings a lot of pleasure to a lot of people to see and to feed grey squirrels. But then on the other hand, it also there's a lot of people who see it very negatively, and it has in the past been referred to as the tree rat as one of its nicknames.
Ecologist at Edinburgh Napier University, Dr. Jason Gilchrist.